TylerD, thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited to chat with you. All right, Tyler, your backgrounds. Let's see here. We got NFT lead at Lucky Trader. You're a daily content creator, and thought this was funny. You're a former high volume NFT trader. So, take us very back. When did you first get involved with NFTs and why?
My wife and I kind of made the decision to invest in crypto back in December 2020. So I had picked up a small amount back in 2017. That's when everyone was talking about it. I bought ETH for the first time. I think it was 1,000. 4 days later, it was $1,400. I thought I was a total genius. I thought these things were just going up only. That was the Pico top 4 days after I bought, and then it crashed all the way down. I totally forgot about it. Very active on Twitter. I've been active on Twitter for a dozen years, and I started seeing more and more thought leaders kind of talking about crypto in 2020. So we kind of got back into it, built a little portfolio, primarily Bitcoin and ETH. And then in January 2021, a few things were happening. I was following some folks who were starting to talk about digital art, generative art a little bit. And then NBA Top Shot was happening. And I don't remember exactly what happened first, but the first Ethereum NFT I ever bought was Euler Beats. And I want to say that was February of 2021. And then I was dabbling in NBA Top Shot as well at that time. So not exactly sure, which came first, but that's around the time period I got in. I ended up taking baths on both of those. So I missed the hype wave on Top Shot. I bought in probably literally a week or two before the top of that market. And then Euler Beats was kind of a similar story, but what was the nice outcome from that is I got exposure to folks like D's, DC Investor, even Beanie. Beanie was kind of a positive influence for a period there in 2021. And, he was talking about which NFTs they like. So I got exposure to those guys. I just kind of started following and seeing what they were doing. And that led me into the art blocks market. So in April 2021, when I kind of dove in, I started minting every art blocks, starting with the Synapse project. I minted Fidenzas. I actually minted a spiral Fidenza. I flipped it within 5 minutes for 0.88 ETH, which is probably my single biggest mistake in the NFT space. A similar one sold for $1 million last year. So that was a little bit of a gut punch. But I started to build up the art blocks bag. I was able to kind of ride that through to that summer 2021 bull market. Had some success, kind of trading, flipping art blocks there at that time. And that was enough for me to leave my corporate job. So I actually left my career in consulting, so financial services consulting, mostly for banks, fintech companies, in August of 2021. And then went into NFTs full time, started doing some content on my own. I started my own show the Monday after I had left my job. I started my own show called NFTs Live. It was a YouTube show. Did a couple times a week, and then was just trading full time. And I kind of did that for the better part of a year. I started seeing that the market downturn in 2022 and realized, hey, maybe it would make sense to start working in this industry where I spend all my time. An opportunity at Lucky Trader opened up, and then I started working with these guys. So that's kind of the quick story there of kind of how I got in, and the quicker path to Lucky Trader. But I'm happy to dive into any of that in more detail.
That's awesome. Okay, so what was your initial attraction to the NFT ecosystem? Was it, hey, I can make a lot of money here, and this is really fun and social and kind of this fun trading environment? Or you said Top Shot. Were you big into sports? What was but you said your first one was Euler Beats, which is not, that's not sports at all. So it's what was the initial attraction?
Two things clicked for me. So one, the New York Times had just run this big story about how rich investors were buying art and just keeping it and storing it in these airport hangars. They were never seeing it. They were never touching it. It was literally investments and for tax write-offs. And as I understood that, and then I started seeing the digital art, as like a concept, as a market play out. It just made sense to me that is a better forum. Clearly physical doesn't matter. People are literally investing in these things purely, for the asset class, and there's less barriers to entry for a digital version of that. So like that was an easy sell for me. And then similarly in the sports card market, so like I think it was late 2020, like the Honus Wagner cards set like all the all-time records for highest sports collectible. I had a few friends who had gotten kind of deep in the physical cards market, and they were traveling to shows. They had to store their cards and keep them in such good condition. They had to go get graded, all that, all those things you have to do. And then Top Shot came out and it removed, again, all those barriers. Right? You don't have to worry about storing them. You don't have to travel to trade shows to try to find buyers. You can operate in a 24/7 marketplace. So I think that made sense to me as well. It was two very logical markets. And then, of course, I mean, it's fun when you log in and the numbers going up every day, which is kind of what the Top Shot market was like there for a period. So that was enough to get me hooked. And then I realized, hey, maybe I should stick around and see what else is going on here.
That's awesome. So you left your job. You said you started a show like a week after, or like you said like the Thursday after or something. I forget, but it was right after. What was the thought process?
Yeah. So the early group of folks who I was kind of talking about NFTs with, trading folks, were actually all daily fantasy sports guys from a different. Some were golf, some football, basketball, but they're all were pretty heavily concentrated in that space. And I think a large cohort of folks who were early to NFTs were from that space, because like the Peter Jennings, Jonathan Bales, NBA Top Shot article onboarded like thousands of people. We were actually talking about that on my show this morning. But through them, I got connected to Pat Mayo, and I don't know if folks who know who Pat Mayo is, but he's pretty big in like the fantasy sports, kind of sports betting space. He has got a very well produced show. He hooked me up with the producer, and we just started filming like 2 days a week. I think we did Mondays and Thursdays, and I had some of my colleagues who were in this DFS space join as co-hosts, so they kind of knew the ropes, doing live shows and live streams. And I mean, it was I was nervous, right? Like I had never done that before, but it was fun. And like I'm a preparation guy, so like I have my notes ready, and I think that is something that allowed me to have some success. I mean, the show lasted 6 or 7 months. I mean, we never got like crazy big or anything, but we had like the 200 to 300 views, type range. So there was a small niche audience who cared about it, who joined. And then, again, as the market started going down a little bit in 2022, some folks lost interest and whatnot. But that's kind of how I got into it. It was just an NFT market show, talking like the top of the market with CryptoPunks, talking art, talking any of the big news events of the week. And it's not really kind of too far off from where my current show is, and say that my current show is kind of end product of that early stage market show.
And was the thought process like, okay, I'm going to do this show so I can build my brand? Or was the thought process, I'm going to be able to hang out with my friends and shoot the shit? Like, what was that? What was the purpose?
Fun. I probably didn't have enough a purpose behind it. I was just leaving behind this corporate career, and I just wanted to do something like totally different. And I wasn't worried about, trying to land sponsors, about trying to build my brand. I think I had like 500 followers on Twitter, maybe 1,000. Like I was still pretty small. Not that I have like a super large account now, but still pretty small. And it was just to have fun, and then kind of force me to dive in deeper to the market. Because I think one thing anyone who does frequent content knows, you have to stay on top of things. Like it forces you to stay in tune with the market. And I think like making that commitment was kind of a pact for me to say like, okay, well now if you're going to dive in, like you're going to be forced to, because you're going to be talking about this, at least twice a week. So I think that was probably my purpose, kind of coming like full circle. It was an effort to, force me to dive in and understand the trends and the breaking products and, developments in the sector.
So from that show, did the Lucky Trader guys find you, or did you know of them, or how did you get connected to Lucky Trader?
I was purposeful here. So I wanted to start talking to these guys. So I knew Logan Hitchcock was the editor-in-chief over at Lucky Trader. So I invited him to be a guest on my show, and I interviewed him. And then I was kind of hoping we would do like the quid pro quo, like him come on, then invite me on to their show, which they did. This is actually when Danny Miranda was still over at Lucky Trader. So he was the host of that show, and Logan was on. And we had a really good chat. I think they liked our conversation. And then I started doing some freelance writing for them, kind of like fairly close after that. So I wasn't an employee, but I had been doing like some blog writing on my own. I think along with creating the NFTs live show, I also started writing. That was another thing I kind of wanted to do after leaving my corporate career. And I started kind of writing about broad topics, and then kind of dialed into the NFT market, as that's where I was spending my time. Started doing like some quarterly market analyses. Logan liked those, then invited me to start writing. So then I started writing for them probably like mid 2022. And then that was kind of the bridge into me finally starting to work there full time in like September 2022.
Could you explain like to people what is Lucky Trader?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's been an evolving product, I think, over the last few years. But, as core, Lucky Trader, most trusted source for news in the NFT in Web3 space. So, we'll dabble a little bit into crypto, but it's mostly kind of core focused on the NFT market. And we've got, let's say, 3 primary channels where we will source media. So we have our website, luckytrader.com, which is kind of like your normal or like media site that you would expect. Articles, guides, some analytics, some historical floor price information for collections, things like that. We've got a morning newsletter called the Morning Minute that hits everyone's inbox 7:30 a.m. Central Time, and then a daily Twitter Spaces show that we do at 10 a.m. Eastern. So 3 different channels for people who, 3 different styles of digesting their media. And then, of course, we've got a Twitter page where we break and share news as well. And I think one of our differentiators is, we are very much into like making sure that stories that we share have trusted sources, and that at times has led us to be slow to breaking news. It's led us to not break news at all. So like if you remember the Amazon NFT marketplace story that was going around, we never broke that. We never talked about it because we never actually found a source for that was viable or trusted. And, that story came out, like in April or something. And now we're in late October. There's still no Amazon NFT marketplace. So I think we made the right call there. But I think that's just like one example of what it means. And I think, we're seeing it more broadly on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it right now, is with fake news or just stories being surfaced that seem like they could be correct, but aren't. And then like the impact they're having around the world, I think more like in some of the Middle East actions, but like there's clearly some importance there. And I think it is something we take pride in.
Yeah. And especially with a a lot of the folks in the NFT market are focused on trading and, making money, having correct information is that's like everything. That like it is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, there was definitely a point, and I think we're starting to maybe get back there, where one of the primary edges was on trading news. So like, I don't know if you remember when the news came out that Nike had acquired Artifact, but that day, Clone X doubled from 3 ETH to 6 ETH. Mm-hmm. So if you were early on that news, you got to land a massive trade. And I think that's something else that, we did kind of take pride in. And it was something I was also doing because while I was producing content this whole time, I was also, trading. So I also cared about the news and its impact on the market. And I think that also kind of enabled us to have like a little bit of a differentiator from some other sources, as we had some folks who were really in the weeds and trading in the collections, kind of knowing the ins and outs in the group chats, versus perhaps some others who are kind of just covering the space a little bit further away.
So you have the newsletter, Morning Minute. So did you start that, and like what was the thought process around launching that?
So I think Logan actually gets the credit for this. I was running a weekly, like Mondays, like market outlook. Like here's what's happening in the market. Here's what's happening this week that you need to pay attention to. And he was like, "This is great, but what if we ran it daily?" And still at that point in time in September 20, I know we started in October 2022. There was still enough market action to warrant that. And I was like, oh, well, well, let's give it a shot. And, it was a huge commitment. So basically I've been doing it now over 12 months, basically like wake up 5:30, 5:30 a.m. every day, kind of see what happened overnight, write up the market report, anything I may have news. I typically have gotten a start on it the day before, but I've got two toddlers at home, so I try to spend my time with them in the evenings. So I opt for early mornings. So every day 5:30, pumping this thing out, try to hit publish
Wow.
by 7:30 Central or so. But it's been a grind, but I have genuinely enjoyed it. It has, for anyone who's followed it, I think they'll see like the product has changed quite a bit from what was just like a very brief market report to more of an editorial kind of covering like one or two major stories, per newsletter, and then kind of getting into the market action. So it's been a little bit more about talking about what is happening more broadly in the space, what types of products are coming out. I've been forced to dive into crypto as well, a little bit more deeply than I think I anticipated, just because there were pockets of time in the NFT market for anyone who is here and following it every day where there just wasn't enough to write about. So I had to explore that. And then when SocialFi came on the scene, that's been like my latest market sector that I've kind of dove into. That was another one that spun up when there was like genuinely not that much happening on a day-to-day basis in the NFT market. So it made sense to cover SocialFi. So that's been one of the benefits of doing it every day, is it's just forced me to stay in tune with everything, find things to write about, which is giving me more personal exposure as well. So
How are you finding all that information? Because I feel like everyone since the dawn of time has been like, people always ask where's a spot that you go to find NFT news or even crypto news, whatever. And there isn't necessarily one spot. I think obviously Lucky Trader does the best job in my opinion. But where do you get that information? Because you got to be following 50 million different accounts and try to aggregate all that news together, all that information.
Yeah, so a bit of our secret sauce is like this Discord setup we have internally at Lucky Trader. So originally it was tied in to the top 50, top 100 NFT project Discords, and sourcing all the alerts, all the announcements from there. And then we opened it up more broadly and started covering, and started linking in like major crypto news breaking accounts, opening it up to 10 to 15, thought leaders who are commenting on more topical items consistently, those who might be breaking news, along with some other news sources, just to make sure we're not missing anything. So it's a pretty comprehensive Discord setup. There's days where you might get 100 pings per hour. So it's a lot of sorting through what is meaningful and what's not. And then, so that's the major part. And then just trying to stay in tune with the conversation on X. I still think I get the majority of news from there, at least news that people care about and want to talk about more, from kind of what is in the conversation on a daily basis over on that app. And certainly it's been much more difficult the last few weeks in months, ever since Elon's come in and changed the algo, and now, it feels like it's different on a weekly or daily basis. So that's made things like the Discord a little bit more important, but also having a group effort. So, we've got Logan at Lucky Trader. He's grinding the news all day. He's scanning the PR wires for breaking news that hasn't even really hit Twitter yet, which is another area that we're sourcing from. So that helps, and it's definitely a group effort.
Very cool. Yeah, so it's really about setting up designing the system to get that reliable information, and then sourcing and sorting from that. Really, it's like basically a big funnel, and you're just distilling it down into hey, this is the pure information.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary of it. And I think having a system like that is really the only way to do something consistently for a long period of time. It would be too difficult, to try to source and write on your own every day without having a system in place. And I think we've definitely had our chance to kind of refine that system. And maybe we'll get into this later on. And now AI is absolutely a part of our system over at Lucky Trader. So that's something that we've certainly embraced and has already had a huge impact on our company in just the last 6 months.
Yeah, we're definitely going to dig deeper into AI soon. But before moving to that, I want to ask you about your show, Lucky Lead. Lucky Lead is it a podcast, or is it just a Twitter Spaces, or is it both, or do you like record it and publish it as a podcast?
It's both. So it's a Twitter Spaces. We record it and then we publish it out to Spotify and to our pod network. The morning is tough. Like, I don't know if folks are out there listening to the NFT morning shows, but there's several, and then there's PO and the guys with the Nifty show that runs at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then Furrow Commando and OSF had their 10:30 a.m. Eastern show with Rogue Radio. So we were trying to find a spot to fit in there. You know, before we launched daily, we were doing a twice weekly YouTube show. We weren't getting enough traction. We saw that like social audio was the thing. This was like November, December 2022. And then we decided to launch a Spaces. And again, we went with weekly, and pretty quickly realized that it's hard to build a community. It's hard to build an audience with a weekly publishing schedule, at least in the social audio space, to reach the size that we wanted to get to. And it was kind of hitting me that, like, so I'm writing this newsletter every morning. It's effectively a script, or at least an outline for something to talk about on a daily show. So we had the content, so the show should be easy. So then in January, we made the switch to running it daily. We started out just doing it 30 minutes each day, one quick story, rundown of the news, kind of riff on the biggest, headlines from the day, ended at the 30-minute mark. It was kind of meant to be a quick hitting way for you to get the news you need in the shortest amount of time possible, which was kind of our differentiator at the time, because a lot of the other shows are more conversational, more guests, more people coming up on stage. And I think we had a bit of success with that, but I think the lesson I've learned from social audio, probably the most over this year, is that people want to be a part of the conversation. So in the last few months, we've kind of opened it up, let audience members, more frequent guests kind of come into, like, not co-host roles, but more formal recurring guest roles on the show. And that's done wonders for the audience and community. And it's improved the quality of the show as well. It's just given us a chance to have more perspectives, more insight, just kind of more broad crowdsourcing, which is just another kind of important aspect of this. So it's been fun to see that evolve. It's probably like my favorite part of my job. Like the newsletter, I still enjoy it, but the show is fun. I enjoy talking. I talk too much as it is, which you may be realizing here during this podcast.
No, it's great. It's a whole purpose.
But yeah, it's been fun. I still enjoy it. I'm nowhere close to getting burnt out on it, which I think is good. And it's something that a lot of folks, risk doing something on a daily basis here in this space. But luckily, I think we found some product market fit. We've got a decent recurring audience now. So now it's just kind of us finding ways to keep making the show better.
So I think you kind of answered this question, but if you had to, restart from building an audience from scratch, what would be the content you would create? Like, what is the optimal content to create for building an audience?
I certainly think a good portion of the audience still wants the trading alpha and the core news that matters, which I think we leaned into. But I think the piece we probably missed early was just not pulling from the audience enough, not creating enough interaction with the community early on. And I think that could have helped us perhaps grow a little bit faster. So that's perhaps one thing I would change, but I don't know, not a whole lot else immediately comes to mind. I think we did some things right.
So if you were starting from scratch with, I don't know, either the same thing or a new topic, it would be you'd continue to do newsletter and a social, audio kind of show. That's like the 1-2 punch.
That's been the system that's worked for me. And I also write the outline and kind of run the show. So having the newsletter done in advance has certainly made my job a lot easier. I think my advice to anyone who's running a daylight show like this, I mean, I can't riff for 60 minutes without some preparation. Certainly some people can, but that's not me. So kind of having the system in place to build the framework doc every day and sharing it with the speakers and co-hosts, they also know what they're going to be talking about, so that they can have, start to prepare their thoughts as well to have a thoughtful show. It's absolutely something I would do, building it again from scratch. And I think that is something I would do across any market sector. Just kind of building in the preparation there. And I think there's, having spent some time in the newsletter space, which also translates to the show space, I think that there's like a handful of like core frameworks, outlines that seem to work. And, once you've got that system, it's kind of just a matter of plugging in content. And I think it's getting easier and easier to do that if you know how to find the content. I think that kind of circles back to your question from earlier. But if you've got the system in place to find it, like let's say you want to start an AI podcast. If you've got the system in place to source the news, and you've got a framework or an outline structure in place for how you want to turn that content into bite-sized chunks for someone to consume, then you can build out a newsletter. And then once you've got the content for the newsletter, turning it into a show is just having your own talking points on top of the news and someone to discuss it with. So they're all very related. I think that's something I've found kind of from going through this process.
Yeah. So how do you think about content creation? What are you weren't in content creation before your previous role. And so now, how do you view creating content for the internet in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I spend a lot of time thinking about how I like to consume content, and certainly it has changed greatly over time. I don't know if you were ever plugged into like Bill Simmons and his work over at Grantland, but he is always probably one of the bigger influences on me. So, back in like the 2010 range, I was reading Grantland, his website, front to back every day. I was consuming most of his podcasts. So like, as I've thought, about how we built out Lucky Trader, that's always been something in the back of my mind, is like, how would this be like, Grantland? Like, how did I used to like to consume content like this? But the reality is now I feel like everyone's attention span is so much shorter than it used to be. So we've spent a lot of time over the last year, 2 years, totally fine tuning. I think totally like revamping our writing style to be like straight to the point. Like here's a 30-second view of the information you need from this, and then here's the 4-minute view if you want to dive deeper. So thinking about how to create content for this super low attention span market that we're in, but to still get messages across to readers, and also kind of sharing some of my own personal thoughts as well. So I went from more of a kind of an objective, here's the news, to more of a, here's the news with my personal spin on why this matters. And I think that's something else that I've gotten help from like Jason Bales, our CEO, on, is kind of turning things into the bite-sized chunks for someone to consume in 15 seconds, but then hitting them with the why this matters, that was something that was not really in my kind of content playbook when I first started out, but I think it is really important. And if you can nail a why it matters, I think it really helps send a point home to a reader. So I think that's a bit of a way of how I've kind of changed thinking about my content creation process.
Do you think that creating content has opened doors for you, or kind of like, how do you see it as like a force for your work and life?
It absolutely has. I think professionally and personally. So I've been approached by a few different protocols at this point, to play a part in those companies. I've actually accepted. I am an ambassador for NFT-Fi, that lending protocol, which is probably one of my more formal roles. I don't think I land that position without some of the deep background in content creation and just the market awareness it requires to deliver that. So that's one door that it has absolutely opened up for me. I think this content creation world is pretty small. So going to some of the IRL events, specifically last year, like I was able to build some connections with folks like Farouk, Mando, some collectors like Anonymous, and I think having the content background kind of helps me have a foot in the door of kind of why I was there, why am I sitting at the table with all of them. which has helped. And then most recently with Thread Guy, who, I mean, he's just a force in the content industry. And we kind of met through SocialFi. And on a personal level, running a daily talk show for 10 months has made it much easier for me just speak. So like I actually threw a birthday party for my wife, her 40th birthday party here in early October. And I was able to rattle off, a nice 10-minute speech about her, which is something that I would have had to practice for like weeks in my prior life. But, having this background, knowing how to prepare a speech with listening points that folks are going to like, it translated to my personal life. So hopefully, she got a kick out of that. She hasn't left me, which is a plus.
It's good. It's good.
But yeah, I think that's a couple of ways it started to kind of impact my life in a few different ways.
That's super cool. Okay, so what are the keys to being a good content creator? And I think one of them that I just want to point out, it just seems like work ethic. Like it sounds like you just grind. Like, that's definitely what it seems like one of the most important things.
Yeah, I think consistency, which is tied into the work ethic, is very important. I think it's very hard to, work hard for a month and then go away for a month and then come back and expect to be able to make a splash and have the reach. And especially we were all kind of boxed into this X algorithm world, and it rewards people who show up every day versus those who don't. So certainly that's an advantage. But I think the biggest thing for me is actually like being involved and caring about the market that you're covering. When I first started doing this, like I was a hyperactive trader. I mean, I probably traded, I think if I look back at my NFT bank stats, I traded close to $10 million in NFTs in 2021, 2022. I was doing this every single day. So I knew the market I was covering. So like I wasn't LARPing. And I think that's, one of my bigger takeaways. And I think it's folks who you can kind of see through, and some of the content creators who don't have don't carry as much respect as others. It's those who are kind of talking about the arena, but they're not in the arena. You can kind of present that facade for a while, but eventually I think the holes in that facade will show through. So I think actually being in the market and actually caring about it is absolutely important. And I know there's no way I would be able to show up and do this every day if I didn't, care about it and enjoy it. So that's helped me get through here to a year.
Consistency and true passion for whatever type of content you're creating. That those are the key ingredients. It sounds like.
Yeah, no, I think it really comes down to that, and then finding a voice as well. Kind of finding your writing style. I think that's another benefit of consistency is just like fast iteration. Like I look back on that first Morning Minute newsletter I wrote, and it's embarrassingly short. My first blog article I ever wrote, it was my New Year's resolution. I think 2021 was to start writing. Like I'm totally embarrassed by it. Like it was like 2 paragraphs long. It was woefully short on depth of content, but it was probably the most important blog I ever wrote because it was my 0 to 1 moment. And then, so when you just start doing something and then you do it every day, you're able to iterate on it much faster and you get those reps in, and it really helps someone improve their product much faster. And I think we saw that in the spaces, our show as well. Like when you do something every week, like we were having just like an issue with the show, like a logistical issue, because like we weren't getting the reps in. And then when you do it every day, like you fine tune that stuff and iron it out within 5 days. And now you're like, okay, how do we make the content better? And you're able to focus on other things. So that definitely helps.
All right. So let's talk about how the NFT ecosystem has evolved from when you first got involved to today. It's a radically different market, but yeah, just like tell me about that change.
It's been a wild history. So back in 2021, there was so few projects and things to invest in that a lot of folks, just kind of the spray and pray method was the correct investing method there for a strong period of time in 2021, because the winners were going to outpace the losers there. And we saw that play out in generative art and the PFP market that erupted with Bored Apes and CryptoPunks Going Wild, and then all the other collections that came. Meanwhile, I think the one-of-one art market was where I was so much more interested in that time. And I kind of had it in my head that the PFP market would be a fad and that it would all come back to art. And then, so like I started fairly early on in 2021 selling PFPs for generative art and for one-of-ones. And then I quickly learned the lesson that also that the generative art was in a bubble. One-of-ones were kind of in a bubble, but also just how illiquid those markets can become over time. So we saw, we got the super rare bubble kind of play out. Bubble might be the wrong word, but we saw that market sector, really erupt and then calm down after like December 2021. And the art blocks market peaked summer 2021. Has since come down to earth. Of course, with art still being created on a weekly basis, and that sector still very strong, but just that from a price standpoint, certainly down. And then, we get into 2022 and we see the marketplace wars start to pop up. And this is probably one of the defining trends of 2022, right? As we had Looks Rare come on the scene in January, get everyone flush with cash with their airdrop. They came and went without finding like a huge product market fit. X2Y2 came on the scene. A few months later, they tried to do the same thing to a smaller degree. And then Blur coming on, and I want to say that was October or November 2022, likely has had the single biggest impact on the NFT market, since they've come in, and how some of the incentives that they brought in with their Blur token and their marketplace via incentivized bidding and listing, created some market forces that we didn't really expect. And I think there's two camps. There's the folks who thought that the market was always overheated and was going to go this direction, and those who feel like the Blur incentives did have an impact. I'm in the camp that it had an impact, certainly, and I think we've seen examples of that with collections who have been plugged in and those who haven't, and how their price arcs have played out over time. So it's been like the driving factor. One of the defining moments, 2023, Mando and OSF selling off their whole Bored Ape portfolio back in February, and that kind of marked the top. And it's effectively been down only in the PFP market since then. Now, we're starting to see a rebound. And, as I walk through all that just now, I think the biggest takeaway is the financialization of the NFT market, the turning NFTs into fungible tokens. And that trend has been a destructive one. I think part of the reason NFTs had their success was, people's ties to the JPEGs. Like there was a point in time where we didn't want to sell our JPEGs. We were very attached to them. We liked the trace. We had fun going shopping to find the PFPs that matched with our personalities, or finding the art that you actually wanted to, perhaps display at home or on your walls. And then, with the onset of Blur, with the onset of some derivatives protocols where you could even go long or short the market, it started kind of chipping away at some of that non-fungibleness. We started seeing them more as line items on a screen, and I think that has certainly had a big impact. And I'm curious, like how we'll come back from that, or if it is effectively irreversible for many in the PFP market. So I think those are some of the broader trends that I've seen play out. And then I think my other takeaway, I said this on a show in the past week, I think the defining artists of 2023 for me are Jack Butcher and Refik Anadol, and I can expand on those. But I think those will be two of our biggest takeaways, things we'll look back on this year and be proud of, and probably kick ourselves for not spending more time with or investing more with.
So looking forward, what are you excited about, and what do you think is kind of done, or like maybe not totally dead, but just like not going to ever return back to the 2021 era?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what's next. So, I mean, on a near-term time horizon, I'm very excited to see into Blur Season 2. We know it's coming November 20th. What is that going to mean? Return to a more stable state, or are there going to be new incentives, new curveballs thrown at us that are going to kind of continue this farmer-driven market, this market where we care more about the fungibleness versus the non-fungibleness. So I think that is absolutely something I'm watching here in the near term. I think a couple the trends I'm watching that I'm excited about. The sports NFT market has been pretty exciting. Seeing some of these fantasy games have some success. So Rare is back. We've got DraftKings Rainmakers, who has had a very successful season 2 here so far, and of course that's kind of a market where I've got some history in as well. So that's been fun to see. The SocialFi market, I mean, that's a little bit NFT adjacent, but that's another kind of new trend that I'm watching very closely and I've got some excitement about as well. And then more in the hardcore NFT market, I think I'm waiting for when the digital art market is going to rebound and what this next run is going to look like. I think it's a matter of when and not if. It's likely going to be tied to the crypto market cycles. And when folks are feeling a little bit more crypto rich, they'll start, thinking about their art collections again. But I think we're stacking a bigger roster of good artists here on a monthly basis. So it's going to be really fun to see which of them can kind of take their game to the next level in more of a bull market than this brutal bear one.
Okay, I want to do a little game here. I want to do like a little bit of a quasi rapid fire and just kind of get your take as to like you're bullish or bearish on the future of that subsector. So let's go with one of one art.
Bullish.
PFPs.
Bearish.
Ooh, okay. Bearish for how long? For like going forward?
Bearish existing PFP collections mostly. I'm bullish that they will continue mattering and that everyone will want a PFP.
I like it. Gaming assets?
Bearish.
Why?
That's my hot take. I think my one counter take is I think Web3 gaming is the consensus view of everyone think that's like the next hot sector. Maybe this is just my personal view because like I'm not a gamer. It is a very hard market for me to understand how to play from an investment standpoint. And I think it's already become too big to try to get broad exposure to. So I think from an individual investor or like as a market participant, it is going to be a tricky market for most to enter unless they're going to spend the time and play the games and understand the assets. And I think introducing tokens, play to earn, it's still very different than the traditional gaming models that have worked. I'm not totally convinced that we're going to see the widespread success that some think we will.
I like it. Okay. Virtual land.
Bearish.
Why?
I think some of the metaverses that we're seeing, like the concept of the metaverse doesn't necessarily need to be tied to an NFT that you own. So like for instance, Bored Elon, he's a big personality on X. He is big in the Opepin market. He's been running a weekly show on Fridays. He did his last weekly show in the metaverse, which I thought was awesome, but he didn't do it in Decentraland, like on a plot. I think you can be bullish on metaverse adoption without being bullish on some of the existing virtual land parcels that exist in the market.
Makes sense. Okay. SocialFi.
Bullish.
Tell me why.
I think we've seen, I think in general, the crypto market has very much struggled to find apps that people have used. And I think FriendTech broke that trend where they found an app that people were excited to use. Now we've seen that market go through 2 cycles already. And for those who are kind of following it closely, it is absolutely in a lull period right now. But there's still $40 million of equity tied up in this thing, and they're in the early stages. And I feel like there's something to SocialFi. I think that the ability for content creators to have more direct control over earning and the ability of others to effectively bet on them, I think there's something to that. I don't know that we've seen the final best product from it yet. I do think there's something to this sector.
Do you remember BitClout?
I wasn't deep in BitClout. What was that back in like 2021? Did you play around with it much?
I checked it out. I had a lot of my friends that were really into it, and I checked it out, and it was just like a Ponzi-nomic system. I was like, until the point people are not making money, like this is going to be popular. But right when people stop making money, it's not going to be popular anymore. And I wanted to get into FriendTech, but it reminded me a lot of, obviously it's different than BitClout, but it just reminded me of that. I was like, I feel like this is popular until people stop making money, and then people are going to say, "Oh, I'm not making money. I'm done." So it's almost like yield farming, but a different method of doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still a somewhat accurate read, a very accurate read, and I think that a lot of folks are having less fun on the app right now, and the folks who are left are primarily there for farming. I think the reason Fintech has had the success is that people think that Paradigm is backing it, and there is an airdrop at the end of this. And I think it's silly to say otherwise, that this app would have had that success without that. So there's something that happened that was true. I think at the same time, people are using the app and building connections and networking, and that has been valuable for them. I think what was the most exciting for me, and now like less exciting, was there was a period of time back in this last cycle, which happened like early September, mid-September, when founders were actually joining Fintech. And we had like the former CEO of Resi, now he runs Blackbird, like Ben Leventhal joined, and he was chatting in his room. And then like Matt Kalish joined, the founder of DraftKings. He joined and he started chatting in his room. And then, Peter Jennings, who's the CEO of Lucky Trader and deep in the sports industry. And that's just to name a few. So they were coming in, and then for a few $100s, you could join the rooms and actually have access to them. And that was exciting to me. The unfortunate reality is a lot of those founders are not as active in the app now. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One could very well be like the Ponzinomics, where there was folks who just came in to speculate on the price of their keys, and the numbers went up and it was great, and they went back down, and those people just left or don't care, and that kind of left a sour taste in some of those founders' mouths. But to me, it just showed like there's something there. There's something to that product, and I think there are absolutely plenty of founders out there that folks will pay to have access to. Perhaps not $5,000, but maybe $250. Maybe $500. So I do think there is some product market fit here. Fintech fully find it. I think the verdict is still out on that, but I'm still leaning bullish on the sector and someone to figure out how to do it.
Where do you think the NFT market evolves from here? And additional question, what will be like the breakout app that makes people like NFTs again?
In the digital art space, I'm starting there. I think we're seeing more of a trend of artists going into these edition collections. So, like one of 100, one of 1,000, or on these generative collections, like one of X, versus the one of ones. And I think that the reason we're seeing that is it's easier to build community, and have more folks kind of as active voices, kind of helping you amplify your brand as the marketing arms. And I think that is likely going to change how artists create and produce in 2024. And I think certainly this highly illiquid, basically, I mean, I hate calling things dead, but like the one-of-one market is like on a short-term time scale is like dead. Like they're super rare volume. Like they're just not trading right now. And I think artists will find, different forms. So I think that is absolutely a trend we will see. Web3 gaming is coming. I said I'm bearish. It will absolutely exist, and we're already starting to see it start to make its impact on the Blur board and the market leaders. So I think that will be a driving force. It is hard for me to predict who the winners will be out of that, but there likely will be some. And then, I mean, of the existing projects, I think Yuga and the other side, that might be the single most important, development to watch for those who have bags kind of tied to the existing like 2021, 2022 PFP market. Because I think if they can pull it off, of course, it'll be a huge boon for Bored Apes. Mutants will be a huge boon for ApeCoin. And it very well could be the onboarding mechanism, for more folks kind of back into this. So I think that is going to be a very important one to watch in the traditional PFP space.
All right, so AI has been like all the rage over the past year, maybe even two. What is your take on AI, both from like a your business standpoint, and also just like how does it impact like the NFT market, if like at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the single biggest development in human history, probably, and like certainly the most important thing happening right now. And I think my advice to anyone and everyone is to just to play around with it and start to familiarize yourself with it, even if you don't have a specific purpose for logging in and using it every day. And you know, I'm one who like goes through thought exercises. I've got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. I already have no idea what their schooling is going to look like in 6 years. Like, what does eighth grade look like? With the way AI is expected to scale in the next 6 to 7 years, what does that mean for high school? What does it mean for college? It's like, honestly, I think it's silly to even try to predict because of how things are going to change. So I'm very excited by it on a day-to-day level. Certainly we have incorporated it into our business at Lucky Trader. So for instance, when I joined Lucky Trader, the team was about 20. I think that the writing staff was probably around 10. And now we're down to 2. And we lean into AI for help in content creation. And I think this is probably a little bit more for some of the articles that you'll see on the site. But there's so much you can do with kind of creating templates, finding a voice that you want, ChatGPT to write in, and then feed it source content, and then help you to get 80% there, and then fine tune it from there. So I think anyone in the media business or content creation who's not at least trying to look at it is probably doing themselves a disservice. I use it as well for my writing, but the other piece I struggle with is maintaining my voice. And certainly I want to be very careful not to just spit out, okay, here's the chat GPT version of this story, and here's your newsletter for today. So like that's something that I will never do. I always have my voice overlaid on top. Some days I'm successfully able to plug it in. Some days it's tougher. I think where it has enabled me to go wider is in markets where I have less understanding. So like when I'm writing about big crypto events, which is not my area of expertise, leveraging tools to help me get an understanding, a baseline foundation of, what are the core important things here, and then being able to apply it to like my worldview. So that is how I've been able to use it. And I think everyone should try to figure out how to plug it in to their writing style on a daily basis where they can. But I think that the sky's the limit from where this is going to go. I haven't dabbled as much on the art side. You mentioned how will it impact the NFT market. We're already starting to see it in AI art. And I think the primary impact is that supply is going to be infinite. There will be an infinite amount of AI created or AI assisted art. So trying to figure out where to pick your spots from an investment standpoint is going to get harder and harder. And I think my current view is that value will accrue to the earliest OGs and those who can use the tools the best. But my thesis there is continuing to evolve over time. But it is definitely one of the more exciting aspects of the market.
And Apple announced their XR headset, and Meta is doing their glasses, which they want to add in AR in the future and whatnot. So there's been a lot of movement on the AR and VR front. How do you think that does that impact NFTs at all, or what is your view on kind of that technological trend?
I think it will. I think that the more folks are in a digital world tied into digital assets, I think the digital world is coming. I think it's another matter of when and not if, barring some like catastrophic change. But like on the trajectory we're on right now, we're going to continue to get more and more digital, and I think people will continue to care about assets in their digital lives. And as the technology continues to increase, I don't think, I'm bearish on clunky headsets, but as soon as these headsets are lean and like they're like the glasses that you can pop on, I feel like everyone's going to have them. I mean, there's going to be adoption curves, but there's going to be a point where they're too good, they're too enhancing to not use. So I think that will be another groundbreaking shift whenever it gets here, and it will just continue to drive us towards this more digitally native future. And I think we're seeing it in the younger generation. I've got 2 nieces who are like 11 They love Roblox. That's all they do is they play Roblox, and they care about their outfits like on their avatars in Roblox. So they will grow up likely caring about the digital versions of themselves to a degree. Now, does that translate to $1 million digital art one of one sales? Not necessarily, but it translates to more wide usage, different aspects of the technology, and perhaps more interest at the lower end. Right, buying the $2 digital T-shirt to put on your avatar because you like the way it looks, which increases the amount of fish in the pond, and eventually bigger fish will come, which I do think a larger pool absolutely will translate to more whales who will want to play on the higher end of the market.
Totally. Awesome. All right, Tyler, are you ready for the closing questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. What are you bearish on? Give me anything at all.
I'm bearish on the Chicago Bears. That is a fact.
Ooh.
Plugging it back to,
Wait, sorry. Are you in Chicago?
I'm a Chicago guy.
Oh, I'm a Chicago guy too. Okay, cool.
So we had such high hopes, Andrew, coming into this year. Like I was out for the first game, and it was totally electric. And then by halftime, it was like the energy was out of our sails already. But oh man, it's a tough one. I think one of my bearish on, probably bearish the most on, my hot bearish take, Web3 gaming sector taking over. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think.
Oh, love it. All right, what are you bullish on? Again, anything.
What am I bullish on? Well, I've said I'm bullish on SocialFi. That is absolutely an aspect. And I'm bullish on digital art. And I think as we look back on this 2021, 2023 era, I think if one good thing comes out of it, it's the beginning of the digital art renaissance. So I'm happy to have been at least a small part of that. And I think I'll be very proud of that in 10 years' time.
Love that. All right. Are you an AI doomer or optimist?
Optimist. Eternal optimist. I'm one who thinks that our quality of life is better than it ever has been. And I'm bullish on the quality of the next generation's lives as well. So I lean optimist.
I love that. All right. Last question. What motivates you?
Trying to build that better life now that I've got two toddlers, so it is my responsibility to help make this world a little bit better, to be a good influence for them, and be a role model. So that's something that I think about every day, and try to make them proud.
Amazing, awesome, TylerD. Thank you so much, man. This has been stellar. People want to find out more about yourself, find out more about your newsletter, your show, your Twitter. Tell people where should they go?
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Twitter or X at Tyler_did_it. You can find our content over on luckytrader.com. You'll be prompted to subscribe to the newsletter. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that. Just get the 5-minute read in your inbox every morning. And then if you want the audio version, go ahead and tune in. Find us 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. Over on X, you can find the Spaces links on my X page as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler.
Andrew, thank you. This has been awesome.